Hi everyone, welcome to PCS 101. I'm the instructor. My name is Lillian Ruiz. And what I wanted to do today was just give you a bit of an overview of what it is we will be doing over the course of the semester. So you can think of today as a kind of introduction. And obviously, this is an online class. And if you were to look on Moodle at the top of the page, what you will see are several folders. And the first folder is entitled Syllabus and Other Documents. And inside of that folder, I have the syllabus as well as the course outline, which is what I'm going to be reviewing today. You can see that if you went there, you could find PDFs of these. I've also included the text in the body in the event that you can't open the PDFs. And I also will be posting any other documents that I normally would have given to you in a handout form if we were meeting in a face-to-face class in that folder. And then underneath that, there's a section called due dates. Now, the due dates are included in our course outline, but I also wanted to have it separate so that you could see them all in one place. And there also is a folder called past class sessions, where what I will be doing is posting the past classes into that folder so that you can always access the current class when you go onto our Moodle site. So you can find the entire semester, but you would find that in the past classes folder. And in addition to that, there's a discussion forum, and this is where I'm going to try to replicate what we would be doing in a class discussion. And there also is an optional chat in the event that you wanted to chat with me or your classmates. And there also is an optional Zoom in the event that you wanted to Zoom. Of course, you could always contact me for my Zoom number as well. So you can see that I've got today's class listed. That's a Thursday, the 26th. I know you probably are watching this on Wednesday, the beginning of the semester. What I'm going to be doing is basically posting class videos every Thursday by 6 p.m., which would be the time we would normally meet if we were meeting in a face-to-face class. Thursday at 6 p.m. So you can kind of think of this as a class that meets at Thursday 6 p.m. And I'm going to review the syllabus and give you an idea of how the entire semester is going to go. And as you are looking at the syllabus, you can see that it begins, well, with some contact information, my name. Most people call me Lillian. Feel free to call me whatever you're comfortable with. My email is there, and my email is just my surname, Ruiz, R-U-I-Z, at gcc.mass.edu. No first initial, because I've been at GCC so long that when I started in 1993, emails still hadn't been instituted as a school-wide system. So when it began, it was just based on surname without first initial, going to show how little forethought we had in terms of what email would require. And then my phone number is there. If I'm not in my office, you can always leave me a voice message. My office is North 328A. That's in the Inclusion and Diversity Center. And my office hours, Mondays through Thursdays, 12 to 1, or by appointment. So barring any emergencies or if I'm in a meeting, I should be in my office Monday through Thursday. So I know that it seems odd to have a public speaking class online. And I used to feel that way as well, but as we all know, COVID has changed everything. And so much of our society has now changed through electronic communication that I think that Zoom and also videos that are uploaded online have become and will continue to become increasingly important. So certainly a public speaking class that isn't held live is going to be different, but I think just as useful, and the reality is maybe even more useful considering our reliance on technology. So what we're going to be doing, because I know you're curious, and then I'll talk about it a little bit more in depth, is that I'm going to ask you to record your speeches and to upload them on Moodle so your classmates can view them. So that's how we will be proceeding with the public speaking piece that I will talk about in a little bit as I go through the syllabus. Something else that surprises individuals about public speaking is that there is a textbook for this class. It's entitled Principles of Public Speaking. I have the 18th edition assigned, but you can basically choose any edition. It's by German. You can also find it on reserve in the GCC library. Basically, it discusses all of the elements that one should consider with public speaking. So I wanted us to go through that textbook towards the beginning of the semester to sort of lay a foundation of how to prepare for the actual speeches that we will be delivering towards the second part of the semester. So that said, I think that the textbook does a very good job of sort of giving you an overview of some of the elements to consider. Those will be the pieces that I will be talking about in our early class videos. And I also have a note here that it's assumed that students will have a good dictionary and thesaurus for reference. And I'm sure you probably have a dictionary or thesaurus in your computer, but having it and then referencing it can be two different things. And I have this on all of my syllabi. I teach lots of different classes. I mostly teach English classes, but I also teach personal communication skills, obviously. I also teach communications classes. So you might have heard about a horror film class that I teach because I'm a firm believer that you can analyze media and popular culture from an academic perspective. And if actually you're a horror film buff, you're interested in learning more about the course, please let me know and I'll be happy to tell you. But in terms of what I was saying, that the dictionary and the thesaurus, even though I indicate that on all of my syllabi of all of my classes, is perhaps less important in public speaking than in my other classes. And that's one of the things we'll be talking about, is that there are similarities to public speaking and writing, but there are also differences in that there is a performance element. You want to be conversational and talk with your audience. And this is the tricky piece. If you've never talked to a camera before, you've got to imagine that the camera is an audience. But what you don't want to do is to read to the audience. You want to have a conversation, which means that you need to have an idea of the concepts that you're going to be talking about, but you don't necessarily need to be as concerned with exact language in the way you would be with writing. And as you know, a dictionary and a thesaurus is about exact language. So that's why I say that perhaps the dictionary and the thesaurus is less important. But again, we'll talk all about this as the semester progresses. Course description, to help remind you what you signed up for. This is about the principles of public speaking as communication, stressing the role of the speaker in the communication process. The course emphasizes the proper preparation and delivery of speeches. And as we will talk about, it's all really about the preparation. Each student delivers a minimum of 5 speeches and participates in small group activities. And there is a prerequisite, which is English 101 or concurrent enrollment. In other words, that you've taken English composition or you are taking English composition. So you already have an idea about how to put together an argument, which is part of what we will be doing when we put together our speeches. So as I continue on with the syllabus, it talks about student learning outcomes. That after this course, you will improve your oral communication skills. Obviously, you've already got oral communication skills, so it's a question of developing and improving them. To develop skills and self-confidence in acquiring and presenting information. Sometimes you know what it is that you're going to talk about, so it's just a question of presenting. But sometimes you don't, and you need to acquire the information and find research and incorporate that. And we'll talk about both of those as the semester progresses. To apply critical and analytic thinking. And I know that that's a term you oftentimes hear in your college classes, analytic thinking and critical thinking and critical writing. And critical isn't necessarily criticism in the negative sense of the word, but it's more about asking questions and interpreting and analyzing. Or, as I like to say, what toddlers do very well, they ask questions, especially why. I've oftentimes said that's the difference between high school and college, is that in high school you learn what. In college, you try to determine why. So perhaps this isn't something that we even have to learn. It's perhaps something that we need to relearn that we did quite naturally in our toddler years. To promote a greater understanding of communication in formal and informal settings. And I think, again, much of this is done naturally, that we adjust things based on the situation. Our attire, our presentation, our vocabulary, even our topics of conversation. It's about evaluating what's appropriate for that time and place. And to promote each student's unique sense of voice, in that you shouldn't sound like me. You shouldn't sound like the textbook. You should sound like you. Truly, your greatest strength is your personality. And I know you're probably skeptical. Most students are. But the idea is to try to create a persona as if you were actually talking to someone, whether you're talking to a large group of people or you're talking to a camera, which is the situation that we're in today. So procedures. As I indicated, I'm going to try to duplicate as much as possible what I would be doing in an in-person class. So if we were meeting in person, we would meet Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. So you can just sort of assume, if this helps you, that we are meeting on Thursday evening at 6 p.m. That I will post a video of myself discussing class material by the time our class would normally meet in person, Thursday, 6 p.m. And I will probably have it posted before then, but certainly by Thursday at 6 p.m., I will have it posted. And then you have a 48-hour deadline to watch the video for that class and answer the corresponding attendance question in our class discussion form. So basically, I will be asking questions in the class discussion form that count as your attendance. These will be questions that don't necessarily have right or wrong answers. I'm just more interested in your thinking and your analytic skills, and I will count that as attendance. Now, if you need more than 48 hours, please ask me for an extension. I'll be happy to grant it to you. Your answer on the discussion form is your attendance for that class. Now, you're not required to respond to the responses of your peers. You can if certainly you wanted to. Again, I think about a live class where you make the decisions as to how much or how little to participate. And some students like to just quietly reflect, while others tend to participate in a much more tangible way. And I think both are equally valid. So certainly what you do need to do, though, is to read all of the classmate responses and also to read my responses to those responses, because I will be responding to all of you. So that will simulate what we might have talked about in a class discussion. And then certainly if you're moved at any time to respond to somebody, you certainly should. So under procedures and the second point, or under the third point, any additional interaction you have with your classmates in the discussion forum is considered class participation, similar to participating in a live class. Some students learn best by participating, others learn best by listening, so you can decide how much or how little to participate. And you should, however, read all the discussion forum responses for your classmates and my corresponding responses for optimal learning. And then you'll submit your written quizzes, because there will be quizzes over the course of the semester based on the class videos and also on the textbook readings. They will be quizzes that are announced in advance, and they will be open book, open note quizzes. And I ask that when you return them, you send them to my email, which is Ruiz, R-U-I-Z, at gcc.mass.edu via PDF, because that's how my grading program works best. And then I can evaluate those quizzes and return them to you. So what are we going to be doing in class? Class discussion through the discussion forum, and also group work through the discussion forum, some mini lectures via video, and student speeches, as I indicated, that you will be pre-recording and posting for class viewing on Moodle. Almost similar to what I'm doing right now, but obviously it wouldn't be nearly as long. So, course requirements, to give you an idea of specifically what we're doing. There are going to be 3 graded speeches in this particular class. So in addition to completing all the expected reading and writing assignments, 3 graded speeches. The first speech is going to be an autobiographical speech where you get to tell the audience a little bit about you and your life history. And it'll be approximately 5 minutes long. Your second speech will be an informative speech. It will be 10 minutes long, where you get to teach the audience about something. Your third and final speech at the ending of the semester will be a persuasive speech. It'll be 15 minutes long, where you're trying to convince the audience to take a position or to take some kind of an action. So obviously we'll talk about formulating these speeches in greater depth as the semester goes on. And then what you will be doing is posting them online on Moodle so that your classmates can ultimately view those speeches. Again, this is what would have been happening if we were presenting live. You would be presenting to the class, and the class would be listening and watching. Failure to deliver a speech on the date assigned will result in failure for the assignment unless the student has unforeseeable, emergency, and justifiable reasons based on the evaluation of the instructor. Because the idea is that all the speeches should be available at the same time for your classmates to view them. Students will also participate in informal, ungraded consultation practice sessions for each speech. So what I'm going to ask is that you all communicate with me prior to each speech. So that would be 3 times. Before the autobiographical speech, before the informative speech, before the persuasive speech, and make sure that everything's going well with your speech. You can kind of think of me as a kind of tutor, and I'm here to assist you in whatever way you'd like. So it can be as informal as a quick email exchange where you are telling me about what your topic is. It could be as developed as perhaps a Zoom call where you actually present your speech to me and I can give you feedback, or anything in between. So basically, these informal, ungraded consultation practice sessions we can do via email, we can do via phone, we can do via Zoom, or again, if you're able to make my office hours or you wanted to make an appointment, we could also do it that way. And periodic quizzes, as I had indicated earlier, will be given. There will be 4 quizzes over the course of the semester, and I will drop the lowest quiz grade. And so generally there are no makeup quizzes because I dropped the lowest quiz grade. Quizzes are generally 20 questions, mostly short answer, some true, false, and multiple choice. Again, open book, open notes, based on the class material that we're covering and also reading in our textbook. If you are a returning student to GCC, you are probably familiar with the Institutional Services Disability Statement, but I just wanted to read that to you. That Greenfield Community College values inclusion and equal access to its programs and activities, and is committed to fostering an environment of respect and full participation. Our goal is to create learning environments that are equitable, inclusive, and welcoming. So there are aspects of the instruction or design of the course that result in barriers to your inclusion or accurate assessment or achievement, please notify me. And if you're a student with a disability and think you need a reasonable academic accommodation, please contact the Office of Disability Services, and their contact information is in there. So now I'm in the section entitled Speeches in the syllabus. That in this course, we will examine the following principles of speech delivery. So these are the topics we'll be talking about over the course of this semester. Number 1, discovering and limiting the topic. Now, I've given you the general idea of what 3 speeches are about. Let's start with the first, autobiographical. So you need to talk about yourself, but what specifically you're going to talk about? Are you going to give a life overview and try to put that into 5 minutes? Obviously, you need to condense. Are you going to talk about a particular time period? Are you going to talk about a particular hobby or interest? Are you going to talk about your educational background? There are lots of different ways you could proceed. So you need to discover the topic and limit it to the time period which you have. So for the first speech, you have 5 minutes. For the informative speech, the second speech, it's double. It's 10 minutes. Third speech, 15 minutes, persuasive. And you can see how the time is incrementally growing over the course of the semester. Adapting to the audience, and this is one of the advantages that we have, is that we know who our audience is, our classmates. So even if you don't know anybody in the class, you do know that you're speaking with a group of adults. Regardless of people's ages, if you're a GCC, you are considered an adult. So that already means that there are elements of content and vocabulary that you could use with a group of adults that you might not be able to use with a younger demographic, let's say with children. But you want to adapt your speech to your appropriate audience. Gathering information. Sometimes you know what it is you're going to talk about, but sometimes you need to gather information. In fact, for the last speech, the persuasive speech, you're going to be required to find outside resources and to incorporate them within your speech. 3 outside resources. So you'll have to gather information by the ending of the semester. Organizing and outlining. Perhaps the most important part of the speech giving process, the piece you don't see as an audience member. Organizing your information and finding a way to outline it so that you can deliver your speech. And the outline is probably quite different than what you would do in a writing class, because you want to have as much as possible in your outline in a writing class, because that's mapping your paper basically. But when you are delivering a speech, you want to have a conversation. You don't want to read to your audience. So it's keywords and phrases so that you can refer to them. In fact, what you will see as the semester progresses is that I will be keeping notes below these videos of my own outlines, keywords and phrases that I use when I present these videos. So developing an acceptable style, suiting purpose and occasion. Again, you want to adapt based on the situation as well as the audience. Practicing and presenting the speech. Again, that's part of what our optional practice sessions are. Coping with communication apprehension, because it's quite normal to feel nervous. And in fact, it's not necessarily a bad thing, as we will talk about. You just want to be able to manage your nerves. Because if you're nervous, it shows that you have some investment and you care about the activity. And active listening and responding to the speeches of others. This class is more than just you presenting your speech, but it's watching and listening to the speeches of your classmates. That's one of the ways that you learn to develop your own public speaking skills. So as I indicated, you will deliver 3 graded speeches. The autobiographical, 5 minutes, informative, 10 minutes, persuasive, 15 minutes. And we'll talk about the specific guidelines in class. And you'll select your topics with my assistance, and I do need to approve the topic beforehand. Outlines will be required for all 3 speeches, and again, we'll talk about how to construct outlines as the semester progresses. I'm going to ask that you send those outlines to my email, which is ruiz, R-U-I-Z, @gcc.mass.edu. And I am evaluating the outlines, which would normally not happen in the real world. No one would see your outline but you. But again, this is kind of a workshop situation. So I'm asking to see your outlines, but I'm going to evaluate them very informally on a checkmark system, where basically a plus is excellent, a good is check plus, a satisfactory is check. There also is a less than satisfactory and an unsatisfactory. Most of the grades end up in check plus. Again, there is no one way to write an outline. There are lots of different ways that you could go about doing this. But what part of this class is, are you trying to discover what's the best for you? Students will also participate in informal, ungraded consultation practice sessions, as I indicated, whether you want to do that by email or phone or Zoom, based on your preference. So attendance, which I think of as the class discussion forums and the speeches themselves. Class activity and discussion is extremely important and can't be made up. So absences and tardiness will be negatively reflected in your participation grade. And excessive absences could even result in failure. So basically, you want to make sure that you are responding to the attendance questions. Consultations, you can meet with me during office hours or by appointment. Conduct and demeanor. Now, this has never been an issue in any of my public speaking classes, but I just wanted to make sure that I said it out loud. That each speech is the equivalent of an examination. Both the presenter and the audience should treat it with the appropriate respect. Inappropriate disruptions will be negatively reflected in your participation grade. There's a section on plagiarism that I'm going to skip because we can do that next class. And then I have a section on grading, which is probably what you were most interested in when we started. 10% is what I call participation. That's the in-class assignments and activities, the discussion forums, things of that nature. 10% are those outlines that you need to submit to me prior to each of your speeches, the autobiographical, the informative, and the persuasive. And again, evaluated informally on a checkmark system. 20% speech number 1 for the autobiographical speech. 20% speech number 2 for the informative speech. 20% for speech number 3, the persuasive speech. And lastly, 20% for those 4 quizzes after I drop the lowest grade. So you can see slow and steady wins the race here. For an A, being excellent work. B, being good. C, satisfactory. D is poor and F is failing. And I don't like to talk about D and F, especially on the first day of the semester. I prefer to focus on A, B, and C. And then I wanted to talk about the course outline, where basically I've listed out what it is we are going to be doing over the course of the semester and when. And I've got a disclaimer on the course outline, as you can see, that dates and assignments may be subject to change, but we will finish everything by the ending of the semester. And reading should be completed before the dates indicated. So, in other words, what you see is what I'm going to be discussing during that particular class. So today, the 26th, is purely introduction. So I am reviewing the syllabus and the course outline. So our next video will be posted on the 2nd of February, which is Thursday by 6 p.m. And I'm hopeful that you would have had the opportunity to read the first 3 chapters of the textbook, at least in the edition that I ordered. Speech and Higher Education, where it talks a little bit about the reasons why we study public speaking. Getting Started, which is exactly as it's named, is how do you begin. And lastly, critical listening. How do you become a critical listener to the speeches of others? Now, if you can't have that read, don't panic, because ultimately, I understand we're still at the beginning of the semester. I'm going to be talking about those in my class video. And as I indicated, I believe that there's I believe I said this, that there's a copy of our textbook on reserve in the GCC library, if you needed to reference that. And then on the 9th would be what I call our next class, which is when I'm posting another video on 3 more chapters. Chapter 7, organizing and outlining your speech. Chapter 8, beginning and ending your speech. And chapter 9, which is wording your speech. Again, the chapter numbers might be different in different editions of the textbook, but basically I wanted us to talk about how to outline the beginnings and endings of speeches, which are particularly important. We'll talk about why. And language in a speech. So you can see that a lot of the textbook is up front, because in the 4th week of our semester, or the 16th of February, we're talking about 3 more chapters in the textbook. Chapter 10, Delivering Your Speech. Chapter 4, Public Speaking and Cultural Challenges. And Chapter 5, Understanding Your Audience. So most of the book is scheduled during the first few weeks of the semester. So you can take that information and utilize it when you actually are delivering your speeches. You can see that our first quiz is going to be on the 23rd on several of the earlier chapters we would have discussed. This is also when I have scheduled those consultation practice sessions so that you can make arrangements with me to touch base about how things are going for your speech. And then speech number 1, that autobiographical speech, where you will be presenting and uploading it onto Moodle the 2nd of March. And at that point, of course, your classmates will be viewing those speeches as well. And then we will be moving forward to the 9th. And in the 9th, we're going to talk about specifically our second speech, which will be coming up, about speeches to inform, for the informative speech. We'll also talk about using visual media, because using some sort of audio or visual is going to be a component of that speech. Certainly you could do that with your first speech, but you're not required. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about supporting materials. Even though you're not necessarily required to use supporting materials for the second speech, you will for the third. But it might be of use to you when you are putting together your informative speech. And then we will proceed, much like we did previously, with a quiz. But before the quiz, we have a spring break on the 16th of March, so we wouldn't be meeting. The quiz would be on the 23rd of March on several of the chapters that we've discussed. And again, another consultation practice session for the upcoming speech 2, the informative, which would be on the 30th of March. Again, you would be uploading those speeches, and then your classmates would be viewing them. And then on the 6th of April, we will talk about our last speech, which is about persuasive speeches, and we'll also talk about argumentation and critical thinking. That's in chapter 13 and 14 of the textbook edition I had ordered. And then you can see on the 13th of April, we will have our third quiz on additional chapters, another consultation practice session, so that ultimately we can get ready for our final speech to upload on April 20th, the persuasive speech. And then on the 27th, our last and final quiz. And there is one class at the very ending on May 4th. That's a catch-up class in the event that we needed it because we fell behind or because there was inclement weather or something of that nature. And that basically is the class as a whole. So again, I know I've given you lots of information and I didn't mean to overwhelm you, but I wanted to give you a sense of what it is we'll be doing over the course of the semester. And then we can proceed starting next week with some of the specific details. So with that said, the only thing that's left is basically what we would be doing if we were in a face-to-face class, which is introductions. But since we're not in a face-to-face class and we have a discussion forum instead, that's what we will be doing. I'm going to ask in your discussion forum for today's attendance, if you will, to basically introduce yourself to the class. Feel free to upload audio or visual, but not required. And again, you're not required to respond to your classmates, but certainly what you are required to do is to read their responses and my responses to them. So that'll give you an idea of what it is that we would have talked about in class. This is also the point where I would ask you if you had any questions. So if you've got any questions about anything that I've covered at all, please let me know. So with that said, I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well. And we will continue on talking about public speaking next week. Take care. Bye-bye.